Well, welcome back to Renovate Building Faith and Family. I'm Brian Sanders.
And I'm Scott Johanningsmeyer.
So today we're going to talk about some of our favorite aspects of the project. Scott, you and I, we've kind of talked a few times, but what is it that's your favorite aspect of doing a project?
It's kind of funny because I'll just go ahead and say it and then I'll explain it. And please, when you hear this, don't stop watching because it's crazy, but I love mudding and sanding drywall. And
we're higher now.
Yeah. And if you've ever done that, you know how crazy that is. But there's a good reason for it. As you can see in this picture, this is of our basement. For me, it's a moment of transformation when you go from a construction project. If you look at, you see the seams in the drywall, you see all the screw holes, everything going there. But when you put the mud on it and then you sand it nice and smooth, you have a wall and it becomes a room. And it's at those moments where I can step back and it's like, I see this project. I see it really shaping up, for me. And I've done this throughout my house. In our basement, we've 3/4 of our basement I've refinished. I've taken down to the concrete wall and studded it out, put up drywall, finished it, in my office, in our playroom, in our family room. When I built the addition on, especially when I built the addition on, that was the moment because that was such a long project. And that when I finally got that moment and got sanded, it felt like it was now part of the house. It was enclosed. And I love those moments of transformation where you look at it and you'll be like, I see it was a work in progress. And now I can see the vision. Now it's not done yet. When it's got the mud, you still probably have to put down the flooring. You still have to paint. There's still things that need done.
Right. Yes.
But it's a room.
It's a room. That transition from a construction site to finishes.
Yeah. And I don't know. And everybody sees it a little differently. For some people, it's when you put up the drywall, or some people when you get the paint, or what about you? When's the moment for you, Brian, that you see that moment of transition, of transformation, where it was a construction project, but it's finally you're starting to see it as heading towards the finished project?
Probably about the time the drywall goes on. It goes from, you can see through all the studs through the different rooms to the unfinished, and the drywall is like, okay, now this is really the shape of my room.
Yeah
it really kind of define. I mean, even the studs are there, the drywall really defines the room.
Yeah, which it's funny if you look at our two pictures, yours is of the stud, there's no drywall. Mine is of the drywalls there being put up and it has it, but it's for both of us, this is before we see that transition moment.
Yes.
And because I guess that's
a work in progress.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, but it's still the construction, still the building aspect of it. And I've talked about how I love thinking and reflecting on these projects. There's a story in the Bible that I often think about when I hit these moments of transformation and transitions. And it's when Jesus is talking to his disciples and he says, "Who do people say I am?" And some say, the disciples say, some say you're a prophet. Some say, Elijah or whoever it is. And Jesus finally looks at them and says, "But who do you say I am?" And Peter says, "You're the Messiah." And then Jesus looks at him and says, "You're right." And then he says something that's great. He says, "Peter, and you are the rock, and upon you I will build my church." And as we read that story, we often think of it like a teacher aspect, where the teacher's questioning and then the student says the right answer and he's like, "Good job, you get an A+ here."
Yeah, you got the Sunday school answer today. Good.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah, you
exactly.
got that Sunday school answer. God, Jesus, in the Bible. That's the answer.
Yep.
But when we think about it as a moment of transformation, when I think about it, when I'm thinking about seeing a room go from a construction project to a room, when I read this passage now, I hear Jesus almost, I put this mental pause in there where he looks at him and says, you know, Peter, I see this moment of transformation. I see what you were as a construction project, as a work building up. And right now I can see what the end result's going to look like. We're not there yet because Peter screws up quite a bit.
Yeah.
But you're getting there. And I think really, I guess that's why I really love these moments of transformation in a project, because I reflected upon myself. You know, I
Right.
wonder, when are the moments in my life that I went from a construction project to looking like the end result? You know, as a kid,
You're not there yet, but
I know,
you're
not there,
reflecting.
nowhere close to being
Yeah,
there yet.
yeah.
But you know, as a kid, when you grow up, you're always looking at the adults, and they always have it together. You know, the grown-ups have all the answers. They have it together. They know what's going on. And now as an adult, as a parent, it's like, I have no idea what's going on. But do they look at me like this? What was a moment when I went from a work in progress to where I am?
Right.
Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes those moments are hard to find. You know, sometimes you turn that corner and you don't even realize it yet until you look back and like, oh yeah, I've turned that corner. But then there's times it's like, yeah, that was a big change. I just something clicked, something fell into place, you know.
Yeah.
Pieces fit together suddenly.
Yeah. You know, I wonder if Peter realized that moment when he said that answer, if it was, you know, I've got the right answer, if it was just here's what it is, you know. And with us, it's, you know, is it when we graduate high school or college? You know, is it when we get our first place? Is it when we, you know, get married or have kids, or are all of these moments steps in the construction progress? Graduating high school is getting the studs on the wall, right? You know, college is drywall. Getting married is, you know, getting the mud on there. The kids is getting the paint. You know, you can go on with all of that,
Right.
because each of these moments is a moment of transition that shapes us and helps and builds us into who we are.
Well, and these transition moments too, they allow you to kind of focus on something different. It's like, okay, I've got this part done. Now let's move over to this part, and the parts together bring in the whole.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, now that we're both parents, you know, with kids, here we are as the builder looking at our children and seeing the moments when they're hitting these moments of transition. You know, my oldest is 10, yours is 14. And so, you know, we're starting to hit these points where it's like, you're not there yet, kid, but I'm starting to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and granted, with ours, you know, there's not many of them yet, still a kid. But with you having a teenager now, is she in middle school or high school now?
She's 8th grade right now.
Okay.
She
So right there.
9th grade.
So you're probably getting a lot more of these moments. Do you have a moment like that where, as a parent, you've looked and said, you know, I've been working and we've been training and building and helping you grow, and now you're shaping and developing on your own?
Yeah. You know, with COVID, one of the things that really, you know, we couldn't get out of the house, and we didn't necessarily want to take the girls out of the house if we could. But, you know, Illinois has the law says you have to be 14 to stay home alone. I think that's the law. And at the beginning of COVID, Mackenzie was 13, but we're like, you know what? She's close enough. we're going to take an hour and just run an errand, or we're going to take a couple hours, and so we just started, we'd leave 10 a.m. and be back by lunch. And then throughout the summer, it's like, all right, well, now we're going to go for 2 or 3 hours, or we're going to be gone over lunch. So Mackenzie, you have to fix your sister's lunch. And just seeing that, she is capable of that. It might be boxed mac and cheese, it might be ramen, but it's a start, and she can take on that responsibility. So yeah, that's one of the things the last few months, it's just, and it provides such a freedom to us too. It's not like, okay, now girls, we got to go to the store, grab some groceries, everybody get your coats, your shoes. It's like, girls, we'll be back in a couple hours,
Yeah.
So definitely a nice transition on our end.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that I really look forward to, over these next several years, really, and I can already see, as a parent, you already see their personalities. You already see, have an idea of who they're going to be, but it still grows and it develops and it shapes and it changes and it surprises you at some points. And so, there's those moments where it's just like, okay, I like this. You're becoming who you were meant to be.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, that's what all of this is about, with doing these projects. When I'm renovating the house, I'm taking it from what it was to, in our opinion, what it's meant to be.
Yes. Yeah. And, and every construction project, there's always something. It's like, man, I didn't quite do that right. Let me rework it. Let me fix it. Let me do something. And same with the kids, there's times it's like, I've tried to teach you that it hasn't taken yet. I'm going to have to let you learn this mistake and figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it sometimes those mistakes are part of the transformation. It's because they help reinforce what you did right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also helps you learn what's right. When
Right.
you're doing a project and you do something and it's just wrong and you have to tear it back down to redo it, you don't make that mistake again.
No, you remember that one.
You remember that one, especially when it's like, oh, we didn't do this and now we got to go back 2-3 steps, and it's
Put your drywall joints a little tighter. Yeah. The hole's a little smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so for me, that's really what my favorite part of all these projects are. It's not the start of the project. It's not finishing the project. It's watching the growth and the transformation. That's what I absolutely love.
Yeah.
And
there's
I think
something to be said about a well-finished project.
Yeah. And I think that anybody that really loves doing this, like not just a one-time project, but if you're doing this over and over and over, if you're working on every room of the house, it's those moments, those aha moments where I see it that really motivate you and keep this going.
Right. Oh yeah.
And so that's kind of been my favorite part of the project. On our next episode, we'll be looking at what Brian's favorite part of the project is, and it'll be a fun discussion there as well.
Yes.
So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see everyone next time, and don't forget to continue to renovate. See ya.